Halloween night. The air was sharp, electric, that strange mix of excitement and unease that only October 31st can bring. I was 21, finally legal, finally independent. My friends and I were heading to a haunted house attraction that doubled as a Halloween party, a homemade setup in the hills, run by a friend of ours who loved to blur the line between real fear and entertainment. It felt like the perfect night. For the first time, I didn't have to depend on someone else to smuggle in drinks or sneak me a beer. I could buy my own. That simple fact filled me with an almost ridiculous sense of pride. It was my rite of passage. So on the way up those twisting roads, I told my buddies, both still 20, that I'd make a quick stop at a convenience store to grab supplies. Vodka, rum, gin, and maybe a few snacks. They waited in the car, laughing, music playing low. I walked across the empty parking lot, the cool air biting my skin, not realizing I was about to step into something that would. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped in. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing softly. The place smelled faintly of disinfectant and cheap coffee. Behind the counter stood a thin guy, probably just a few years older than me. His eyes tracked me with suspicion, that familiar, "you're not old enough" look. So I smiled wide, trying to radiate confidence, flashing the ID in my wallet like a badge of honor. I grabbed a basket and started down the aisles. I remember every detail, the crinkling of snack bags, the dull hum of a refrigerator, the way my sneakers squeaked on the tile. I picked up some beef jerky, a few bags of chips, candy corn, because Halloween isn't Halloween without it. But then I noticed something strange. The cashier wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring into the mirror mounted in the corner of the store, the kind that reflects the aisles, a cheap security trick. His face had gone pale. His eyes were locked on something I couldn't see. I followed his gaze, and that's when I saw him. At first, my brain couldn't process it. Crouched behind the shelves, half hidden in shadow, was a man wearing a black balaclava. In his hands, a shotgun. My heart froze. He hadn't noticed me yet. Or maybe he had. Either way, I'd just walked into the middle of an armed robbery. The clerk's voice trembled as he called out to me. "Find everything you need?" He was trying to keep me calm, trying to get me to pay and leave. But my voice betrayed me. "Yeah," I muttered, my throat tight. "I'm done." In the mirror, I saw movement. The gunman was rising from his crouch. The black mask appeared above the shelves. He had seen me. "Move to the front," he said, his voice muffled and distorted through the fabric. I obeyed, basket still in hand, every nerve in my body screaming to run, to hide, to wake up. He gestured for me to stand behind the clerk, both of us now in the line of fire, and that's when I realized I might die that night. Time slowed down, the hum of the lights, the ticking of the clock near the counter. Every sound was magnified, surreal. I prayed my friends outside would notice something was wrong, that they'd call the police. But all I could do was stall. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound casual, "what brings you here tonight?" The gunman let out a short, humorless laugh. "What do you think?" he growled. "I'm here to rob the place." I nodded slowly, trying to think. My mind scrambled for something, anything, that might keep him talking. "I'm just here for the spirits," I blurted. "Going to a haunted house. Thought I'd grab some spirits for the party." It was a stupid play on words, but it changed everything. The masked man froze. I saw his eyes through the holes of the balaclava, wide, terrified. "This place has spirits?" he whispered. I almost laughed, thinking he was joking. "Yeah, man," I said. "It's a liquor store, wine and spirits." But his breathing quickened. His hands shook. He wasn't talking about alcohol. He thought I meant ghosts. He took a trembling step closer. "They talk to you too?" he asked. "You hear them? The voices?" My stomach dropped. He was dead serious. He told me the spirits had spoken to him, that they told him to rob this place, that they whispered in his ear at night. He was trembling, muttering half to himself. And that's when I understood. He was sick. He was hearing voices, ghosts, demons, hallucinations. And I had stumbled right into his delusion. So I did the only thing I could think of. I leaned into it. "Yeah," I told him softly. "I know what they're like. Tricksters. They lie to you. They want to claim your soul. That's why I'm here, to guide them to a haunted house nearby, a place where they can rest. He stared at me like a drowning man seeing land. They told me to come here, he said, almost pleading. They said I had to do this. Don't listen to them, I whispered. They're trying to corrupt you. They feed on fear. For a moment, the air in the store felt heavy, charged, like we weren't alone. He told me he usually took medication to quiet the voices, but he couldn't afford it anymore. His dealer was gone. The withdrawals, the whispers, they'd driven him here. I could see tears welling in his eyes. The shotgun trembled in his grip. I prayed he wouldn't accidentally pull the trigger. Then, faint, distant, I heard sirens. Help was coming. But that sound also meant panic. If he realized the police were on their way, it could all go wrong in seconds. I tried to keep his focus on me, my voice shaking but steady. It's not too late, I said. You can still walk away. But before he could respond, something happened. Behind him, a bottle of vodka fell from the shelf. It shattered on the floor with a deafening crash. We both jumped. Now, I've tried to rationalize that moment for years. Maybe the shelf was unstable. Maybe he'd bumped it earlier while hiding. But deep down, part of me wonders. Because that bottle, a bottle of spirits, seemed to move on its own. The gunman spun around, staring at the broken glass. When he saw what it was, the clear label glinting under the lights, he screamed. It wasn't just fear, it was terror. He screamed that the spirits were here, that they'd followed him, that they wanted his soul. And then, before I could move, before I could say a word, he raised the shotgun. The blast shook the store. For a heartbeat, I didn't understand what had happened. Then I saw him collapse. He had turned the weapon on himself. Blood splattered across the floor, across the counter, across me. The bell over the door rang as officers stormed in, shouting commands I barely heard. I dropped to the ground, dazed, ears ringing. The world had become white noise. Later, the police told me who he was. A man in his 30s, a long history of mental illness, addiction, and failed rehabilitation. He'd been in and out of psychiatric care for years. The system had failed him over and over again. When the drugs ran out, the voices came back. They told him to rob a liquor store, told him there were spirits trapped inside. And I, a random 21-year-old kid on Halloween night, had walked straight into his delusion and become part of his story. I don't remember much about the cleanup. I remember sitting in the back of an ambulance, my hands still shaking, staring at the blood on my clothes. The officer said I was lucky to be alive, but it didn't feel like luck. It felt like survival. I never made it to that haunted house party. I never celebrated Halloween again. Because every October, when the air turns cold and I pass a liquor store window, I see my reflection, and for a split second, I swear I see the outline of a man in a balaclava behind me. Sometimes I dream of the moment that bottle fell. I wake up wondering if it was gravity or something else. Maybe the spirits he believed in were real, in their own way. Maybe they nudged that bottle just enough to stop him from hurting anyone else. Or maybe they're still here, watching, waiting, whispering. People love to talk about ghosts and haunted houses, but sometimes the most terrifying spirits aren't dead. They live inside us, in our minds, in our fears, in the echoes of the things we can't forget. I still see his eyes. I still hear that shotgun blast, and I still wonder, if I hadn't said that word, spirits, would he still be alive today? Maybe that's the real haunting. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Archives channel for more real-life mysteries, horror, and psychological true crime tales that blur the line between the living and the dead. What do you think really happened that night? Was it coincidence? Or did something else push that bottle from the shelf?